shall we start now?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about Bloodchild, which is a story by Octavia Butler. It was written in 1984 for a magazine, I believe, and then it was republished in the compilation Bloodchild and Other Stories, and it has won like 3 of the most important like science fiction awards, which are the Nebula, Hugo, and Locus awards. So yeah, it's very famous short story. So let's start as always with the first round of impressions. Adrian, for instance, what do you think?
I liked it, and I like the story. Actually, I think this is the kind of science fiction that brings some quality into science fiction. I like the most than anything else the relationship between the humans and the aliens, how they form a symbiosis and they survive together somehow in that world. Although we can discuss later if it's slavery or if not, or what is it that links one species to the other. The way I see it, this was a love story. Entire story. It was a love story between Gan, is his name, I think, the main character, and the alien with
Tigatoi, I think. I think you pronounced it T. Not sure, but
and the alien. So between
yeah,
them,
you never know with that spelling. It's better to say the alien.
Yeah. The thing is that they seem to care for each other somehow. The aliens seem to care for the humans and for this specific human specifically, and this human seems to have something that we could call love for the alien, as long as we can talk about love in such an unequal and power unbalanced relationship. Anyway, I like the story.
Okay, so that's a very good point for discussion, I think. Eugenia, what do you think?
I like the story. I found it very, very creepy and disturbing, but in a way, I enjoy that. So it made me think about what could possibly happen to us in the future that would lead us to a situation like that. Us becoming, it's even lampshaded in the story at some point, us becoming just big animals and being treated as we treat animals that we use and consume ourselves without thinking much about them. That's what the relationship between the humans and these race of aliens is portrayed as such. And it really reminded me of a lot of I don't know why, but lately in Japanese fiction there's been a lot of stories like this, very popular ones too. They're very creepy, very disturbing. Imagine this story but illustrated. It's horrible, and it's I can't even begin to describe it. But it reminded me of that, and it kind of shows that we, even in different cultures and in different coming from different backgrounds, we always think about life outside Earth and aliens and how they might be like and how our relationship with them might turn out to be like. And of course, most of them are very negative takes on on aliens and our relationship with them. But this one, I thought it was I really understood the gist of it, even though someone might ask me and I wouldn't be able to describe it with words, because in the story it wasn't described with words. It was just the atmosphere, the relationship, the actions. It's not overly described, but I think that we all understood what the main gist of the story was and what the conflict of the story was, the character's conflict inside of how he wanted to be treated as, how he wanted to end up as. So I really liked it, but I wouldn't know how to explain why. So that's my take on it.
Okay, thank you. Mo?
Yeah, I really liked it. I liked that the aliens were very alien. That's always nice when they're not just humanoid. I haven't entirely processed the story. I think there's a lot to unpack in it, and I think it touches on a lot of different important themes. Not just was the exploitation of other animals and of people. There's body horror, touches on pregnancy and sacrifices people make to their bodies, this abusive relationships and indoctrination. So it's very like heavy. There's a lot to like unpack and think about. So yeah, I haven't entirely I just read it today, so I haven't entirely processed everything. But I think there's a lot packed into a small story, and it's really well done.
Okay, Eric, what do you think about the story?
I'm from Moscow, Russia. I read it in Russian language, and I absolutely loved it. First of all, thank you for introducing this author to me. I never imagined this kind of author existed. I like her very much. And at the beginning of the story, I felt afraid. I was frightened by this insect-like female character. But by the end of the story, I actually fell in love with her. And that was a very interesting kind of switch in emotions, because it reminded me of the Beauty and the Beast story, that something like visibly a living creature can be frightening at the beginning, but once you find out about its culture, about its way of thinking, about its like inner qualities, you fell in love with this person, or not necessarily romantically, but you start to understand this person better. And for me, this was story definitely a love story between very two different creatures. Also, it was for me it was a story of a slavery, but not the racism like slavery, but the slavery of women by men. So and when I was reading the birth scene by Lomar, and then when I was reading this like the nightmares of the protagonist of Gen, I felt I completely changed my opinion about abortion. So because I went through this experience like I am the one who is giving birth to a creature. So that was very interesting experience. Absolutely loved the book.
That's great. Thank you. Jessica, what do you think?
I liked it, yes, which I came to it not very optimistically, because we read Kindred and it didn't do much for me, by the same author. But I have to revise my opinion on Kindred now. I liked it, yes. It has lots of themes, as Mo said. At the beginning, you understand nothing. Who is who? Who are these people? Who all these things? And very slowly, small details appear without actually explicitly explaining, but you get to understand everything. And the thing about this is, by the way, I have to say, they're not aliens. They're the inhabitants of the planet. The aliens are humans.
Humans are aliens. Yeah.
That's true.
By the by, which is new. And you get to know the alien, let's put it easier that way, culture and thinking process, and even feelings, which is you don't normally. It's just from the human point of view, subjugation to an alien race, whatever. You don't get to know the alien point of view, which I thought was interesting.
Okay, Eloisa, you're next.
Okay, I like it. At the beginning, I was very, very confused. But as soon as I read more about the story, I realized what is going on. I really like the way they describe the relationship between the human, with Terrans, and the alien, the other species. Yeah, I really think it was very harsh sometimes. At the same time, it was really nice the ways that they try to survive in this situation. Yeah, overall, I really like it.
Great. Margot, hello.
I don't know, a couple opinions, so I don't want to repeat. But yeah, I liked it. I'll just say I liked it.
Okay. Yeah, for me it's like the same. Sorry, have you finished?
No. Yeah, I guess we'll talk more about specifics.
Yeah.
I'm still thinking about it.
Okay, so yeah, for me it's like the same of some of you have said. Like I really like the story. I thought it was disturbing in some ways and shocking, but still I really like it. It's like Eugenia said, I don't know exactly why, but because in some parts I was really enjoying the descriptions and everything, but in general and at the end I really like it. So, but actually I haven't thought of reading it as a love story until like I read some of the stuff that the author has said. But we could start with this topic, I guess. Like, do you think it's a love story? What do you think is the relationship between Tiga Toy or whatever his its name and the main character?
I think it is. I think there's love there between them both. We don't have to start defining if love is possible, as we said before, with such inequality, such unbalance in the power distribution between them two. But then what the story tells us is that they grow up together. By the way, one of the things that I like, as Mo was mentioning before, that the aliens are very realistic, like they are real aliens. They are not like humanoid or they look like us, but they look with some little details change, is that they have different growing up timings. They evolve as they mature as individuals in a different way, humans and aliens, or however we want to call the invasor species. So they grow up together somehow, they develop a special link, they have a special understanding between them, they are linked in a special way that no other individuals have. And for what the story says, this seems to be very common between the hosts that are going to use, whose bodies are going to be used for the eggs or whatever, and the impregnators, for calling them something. So this relationship, this special link, this bond that they have, I understand it as love. Now, we could say that is dependency somehow, that is influenced by some others, by the context or whatever, but I don't have a doubt that they love each other.
I didn't see it as a love story at all. I think it uses some of those ideas because it's sort of a grotesque version of our versions of these, of a couple, of heterosexual monogamous couple. So it kind of uses those trappings so that we can kind of see it that way. But I wouldn't call it love. I mean, I don't know, can see it as sort of, it was almost more child abuse or grooming, like if you want to see it that way, as like this alien gets this gone when he's a child, a baby, and grooms him to be dependent on her because she needs him to reproduce. And I don't see any love coming from her end, for sure. And the end, oh, I don't know. I mean, yeah, he feels something, but I mean, to me, it's more, yeah, like yes, maybe a child victim of sexual abuse can feel like they love their abuser, but that's not really love. That's psychological trauma. Like, I don't know. I can't see it as any sort of love in any real sense of the word.
I agree with that because I don't think that the boy has much options. Like, if I understand correctly, like every family has to have like at least one, I don't know, child person. I don't know, to like have the ex of the aliens. So I don't think that he has really much choice, because at the end he's just trying to protect his sister. So I don't know. I don't see it as love either.
Yeah, I'm also like, I don't see it as love either, but I think she's trying to maybe show different relationships. For me, it's kind of brilliant how she's she's showing the female male traditional patriarchal power disparity in relationships using a male, which is in the role of a female, and a child, so you can kind of do more parallels there. But there's a lot of there's the theorist in feminism, like from the 70s and 80s, and she became very infamous because she said in a book from like 40 years ago that all sexual relationship between opposite gender, she said it's intrinsically rape because there is a violence in the act, and there is always an existing power disparity no matter what you do. So obviously everyone, it was very radical thing to say, and most people don't agree with that, no? And most people didn't agree with it then. And but it does, when I was reading that where he has willingly gone into the room to be impregnated, and it was so like the story was very uncomfortable the whole time for me. It was like something from Handmaid's Tale, but at the same time he feels guilty when it happens, and I feel like a lot of women can identify with those storylines in a way, and it's kind of taking into sci-fi to going into sci-fi to show how crazy it is that this power differential exists. But that doesn't mean that all relationships are bad, no. And I think she was kind of showing that when she shows this older creature that dies, no, and that she seems to really care about the host of her babies. No, it's the first thing that she thinks about is she asks how he's doing, not how her babies are. So I think it's showing that, yes, there is a power differential, but it's kind of nature. Like, you can't do anything about that power differential in a way. And then it also just depends on, there are good aliens and doesn't automatically make them bad. I don't know. I don't know if I'm like diverging too much or if it makes sense, but yeah.
It makes sense. Now that you mention feminism, it shows in a way how history evolves. Yeah, these aliens, at first, they just wanted the humans for their own uses. Then they're on a preserve, and they say that the Tiganoids, or what her name is, political faction is the one in favor of more relationships, more respect. You could sort of, there could be an almost, I don't know, feminist movements towards more respect towards women who are the child bearers. And this might grow more in the history of that planet. It's just things evolving. So in that sense, as you say, there are good and bad aliens, or more progressive aliens, more advanced in their thinking, but not necessarily any love there, I would say. No.
But did you read, because when I was reading, at first it seemed like they could choose to just have their babies from animals, not use humans. But then towards the end, when they're talking about it more, it's she seems to be saying that they could no longer babies from, they could no longer have the worms in animals. So I don't know if that's true, if we're supposed to believe that's true, but I understood then, oh, they don't have a choice. Like if they don't do this, their race is extinct.
They must have done it with animals before humans appeared on the planet.
Yeah, but he says something like, oh, it's
Yeah, he did
stopped
mention
working.
that they did it to big animals before, but somehow humans are like better.
Maybe they ran out of animals. I think they mentioned something like that.
No,
So
there
maybe
were
that's
animals.
yeah, but
The
not like
family has like a farm or something like that.
yeah, the ones they kill to feed
Yeah.
the newborns. But I think they mentioned at the end of the story that they were using like bigger animals before. Maybe I understood it as megafauna or something, and they were no longer in the planet. Maybe that's the reason they are trying to conserve the humans and taking so much care to keep the humans alive, like by respecting the females and so they can bear more human children. I don't know. Going back to what Margot was saying about the imbalance, the patriarchal imbalance, and what Butler said 40 years ago, I kind of see her point about the power differential in a patriarchal society, and where was it trying to arrive with all sexual intercourses or experiences are rape in such a society where men hold all the power. But the way I see it, this doesn't mean that there can be love. Even in the more mistreating relationship that can be toxic and damaging, or even not reaching those steps, just paternalistic and looking into women into submissive inferior beings, even there can still be love, which is what I see in the story. Like the alien, I can consider her evil or evil or something like that. Like I think that she genuinely cares for her human family. Like she cares about the relationship that she has with the main character, and there's like a give and take encounters between them. Like when she mentioned, I think the human character mentioned something about how the birth should be shown to the parents, and the alien takes into consideration like things about what she says, like okay, it will be considered later. So I think that there's more than just a power imbalance. There's something else. Like I don't know. I think that she goes to great lengths to protect the family and the main character. So I think there may be something else, something there that you can call love or something similar.
But she is, as I say, she's the advanced thinking of the planet, this alien. They're not all like that.
For me, it's definitely a story of love. And if you call I agree completely with everything you have said, because it can be treated as a child abuse and as a power game, etc. I completely agree with that. But I wanted to see, for my own sake, to see something beautiful in this story. And I thought that since this is a science fiction story, and there is a very high level of abstract, to me, these different types of creatures were like man and woman, right? Men are from Earth, women are from Venus, or something like that. But it's two different creatures who sometimes do not understand each other. But in this case, Tiga Toy, who is insect-like living creature, and this boy Gan, both of them are sort of teenagers, which fell in love for the first time in their life. And for me, it's like a boy and girl, a young boy and girl. and they have, I think, all the three components of love. They have intimacy because when I was reading their dialogue, it seemed very warm to me. They discuss things which they do not discuss with other people or insect-like creatures. They have passion, I think, because Tigatoy says that I come to this place because it's a refuge and for me, and it's a refuge for me because of you. And I felt that they have this warm feelings, and I think they have commitment because this boy he is ready to take like to become pregnant. And for me, this is like the highest level of commitment one can show to another, because I agree with Andrea that there is a question, maybe he did it because of his sister, and that's also a very big question for me. But I think in the end he did it because he really loved this Tigatoy, and Tigatoy was not raping him, because he said, okay, if you don't want it, I'll go to your sister. So I mean, she was really taking, she really cared for this boy. I understand it sounds like weird and like almost pervert like, but if you consider the boy as a man and Tigatoy as a woman, or you like switch them, I think that's normal. That's normal.
For me, calling it a
So,
love story is... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Okay. For me, calling it a love story is like calling Lolita a love story. Like, I mean, the main character in that story, Humbert, he thinks he loves Lolita, and he takes care of her when her mom dies, and he wants her to survive, and he wants her to be happy as long as it's following his goals. And that's exactly what's happening in this story, is that, yeah, she wants him to be happy as long as it's like leads to her getting her to plant her eggs in him, because that's the end goal. And when I mean, I like what Jessica said, that she is the more progressive for this planet. So maybe she doesn't forcibly rape him, but that's not really saying much. I mean, when he says in the moment, no, I don't want to birth your children or whatever, and she says, okay, like she doesn't force him, but she doesn't, it's not okay. Like she's okay, well then I'll go do it to your sister then. What do you think about that? Like, it's manipulation, and it literally says it in the text that, and he even knows, he's like, I know she's manipulating me, but like he can't quite say no, partly out of he wants to protect his sister, but also partly because he's been groomed since the time he was a baby to feel like I'm special and I want to still be special. And if you ask victims of child abuse, some who are still in the throes of that, they're going to say that they love the person that's abusing them. But is that love? I don't think so. It may feel like it, but I don't think we can say that that's love.
Yeah, it's a very twisted form of love, but that doesn't change that some people in those relationships, like for example, like you said, Humbert in Lolita, or any victims of child abuse that don't yet realize that, we believe it's love. It's a twisted and sick version of love, but in their minds it is. So I think it's a love story, but also it isn't. I think it's both. In some aspects, the story reads like a love story because of how the people involved feel about it. Well, people, how the living beings involved feel about it. But I think in regarding our standards in love, I think it's not. I think we all would enjoy a different love story other than this one, because it's kind of
But
Yeah,
I think
great.
First of all,
I don't know what to say.
sorry, go ahead.
But still, I also think that a very big theme of this story, for me at least, that we didn't talk about yet and might be good to revisit it later, is the drug use. there's so much drug use in this story.
Yeah, the
And
eggs.
I was like, my God, what is this? This psychotropic thing that alienates people, like, oh my God. That was very concerning to me. And to me, it really changed the nature of the aliens' relationship with the humans, because they're providing them with something that makes them more compliant. And it's like the biggest form of manipulation to me. It's like, I really hated the drug use. I was like so creeped out. Like, these creatures might just give you those eggs without your knowledge or without your consent, and you just suddenly don't know any better or can't resist. And to me, it was very disturbing. And it's not something I would expect to encounter in a science fiction story, because I think the subject of drugs doesn't always translate into science fiction, but here it did, and it made the story much more disturbing to me. I don't know if you feel the same.
It seems to be, it does, yeah, it does make them more compliant, but it seems to be somehow good for them, because when this Loma person is recovering, they give him eggs to recover, not just for the pain, but to physically recover. So, must be, but yes, it makes them more compliant. That's manipulation, pure and simple.
Yeah, I agree. Like the alien may care for the boy and the family, but for me, like there's nothing like beautiful in the story, as Eric said before. Like because it was like Mo said, like the alien wants to plant the eggs that day, and even though the boy watched something very traumatic to him and was very distressed and very angry, and the alien say, no, I have to plant the eggs tonight, like if it's not with you, with your sister. That's very like twisted. And I don't know, it's like very awful, like um
Okay, I may
yeah.
sound like a pervert right now, but my understanding of this, because this is science fiction, right? And for me, everything is symbolism. Boy is not a boy; is a man, and this insect-like creature is not an insect-like creature; it's a woman. And for me, both of them are virgins, and he did not like she did not a penis in her life, and he did not a vagina in his life, never. So if I remember myself when I was coming of age, I was always wondering, like, how does it look, like what do I do? And for me, this is like the moment in life of both young, inexperienced creatures who want to engage in physical relationships, which will result in a child. And I don't know if you had any. I hope you did not have the experience with abortion, but this is a big question for me, because I always thought that if a woman gets pregnant, both the man and the woman should consult on whether they should go on with abortion or not. But and I always thought that. But when I read this story, and I thought that, what if I was the one who got knocked up by a girl and I want to have an abortion? Shall I ask my boyfriend if I have a girlfriend if I should have an abortion or not? And then when I read this story, I thought, no way. Like the person who knocked me up should not have anything, because it's my body, right? I want to get that fucking thing out of my body. So I am the only one who is responsible for my own health, because it's my body. And so I thought, okay, I mean, and I thought that man should not have a saying in abortion. It's a woman's body. She is the one who goes through this horrible process of implanting the embryo inside of her and then giving birth. And that's what I got from this reading experience.
Yeah, I think it really makes you think about this, because it's such an obvious role reversal that the men are obviously the ones in this story being always used by the aliens, because the women are the ones that can bear human children and thus keep the circle going. So I think it really is it's intended to be like a wake-up call for many men, that to like really think, what did that happen to me? And I think that in many cases things to do with a pregnancy should be mainly a woman's decision. Of course, if it's in the context of a couple willingly having this child, I think of course a couple that has decided to have a child may of course have an equal say in it. But I think it really reminded me of something very big that happened in my school when I was 18, because the daughter of one of my teachers got pregnant, and she the one that got her pregnant was most horrible guy in my school there was, and he was horrible. Okay, so I hated him with a passion, and I still do. So this guy, okay, he was younger than her. He was 17, and he got her pregnant, and then he decided that he wanted to go to the United States to study for more than 5 years, and he said to her, get an abortion. She was like, I don't want to. I want to keep my kid, and you're not even going to be here for it. And he was so adamant on her getting an abortion, yet he didn't want to do anything with her. It was because of that he wanted the abortion. So she said, fuck you, and she had the baby, and he left. And when he left, she said, you're not going to have anything to do with the baby if you leave. He left. Everyone knows the baby but him. All the school knows the baby but him. So that is a two-way road. Like, it can be applied to abortion, but it also can be applied to leaving a baby behind or having a baby. It's like, it's the mere decision on a body that really isn't up to anyone but the person having it. Because in circumstances like this, like when it's not clearly a product of a good and healthy relationship, but as we said, a relationship with a power imbalance in our society, for example, it may translate to very serious situations such as underage pregnancies or situations of rape. I think no one should be able to decide but the woman involved, because ultimately it's your body. it's your say. And like this boy, you're ultimately the one who has the right to decide whether to do it or not without being blackmailed, because because it's not only manipulation, it's blackmail. Like, if it's not you, it's going to be your sister. Because I think we all, it's really interesting how we all perceive that even using the sister isn't fair, despite that she would be consenting, because somehow her consent is not exactly valid, because it's still a very power imbalance relationship. So it's still, even the boy recognizes that, she might be willing, but it doesn't mean that it's okay. Even in the story, it's time shaded. So I really think that it's a very serious topic, and I think that the author wanted to bring it to light, even if using aliens or or other creatures to and make it apply to normal human relationships that we may encounter in our daily lives. I think it's a message that it wants to convey with this story, even if it's science fiction and and seemingly far away from our reality.
You know, there's something missing in this story that I think you're all touching on. It's the relationships that you consent to have these eggs implanted in you to help someone that you feel affection for, that you've grown up with, that you respect and all this. But I don't think there's later any relationship between these little mini aliens running around and Gan. You know, I don't think he's going to act as a mother or a father in any sense at all. He's just a vehicle.
I thought so, but then it was told in the story that Tigatoy was the product of his father's.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's what made me think that it really, there's a parallelism with actual human pregnancy and motherhood there, because still the aliens remain attached somehow if they wish to, because we all agreed that Tigatoy was a different alien, was a more progressive alien. She had a different way of thinking to many of her peers. But it really makes me think that there can still be attachments between the aliens and the human families they're born from after their birth. But
Yeah.
we can't be really sure.
For what I've read, the Butler herself said that it was a pregnant man story that she was writing this story. Now, critics and readers all over the world have said to Butler that she's wrong, that the story is about something else, the same way that when she says this is not a story about the slavery, this is symbiosis, the critics and the people said, no, you're wrong. Your story is about slavery. She said that, yeah, it's a pregnant man story. She has explicitly, I'm quoting directly, she has explicitly stated that she is writing about symbiosis, as well as writing a love story, a pregnant man story, and creating a twist on traditional invasion stories. Now, the reaction of Butler, though, to these people telling her, no, but your story talks about something else, is, well, that wasn't my intention, but it could be. Like, all stories are free for interpretation. So when someone, a critic or reader, sees something different, like, for example, I'm finding in this story that this is, whatever, slavery, for example, that is perfectly fine. The only part that she didn't like, for what I read, is some critics is telling her that subconsciously she was talking about something else. And she was like, how the hell do you know what is inside my head as a critic? Like, you are not qualified to say that. You feel free to interpret whatever you want, but what I intended to do is something else.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's
it's like that. I
different,
find it funny and sad at the same time that there are people that feel entitled enough to tell an author what she was trying to do with that story. It's like, yeah, you might interpret it as you will, but
it's different if you say, no, this is like this has like very different interpretations. But if you say, no, the author was actually trying to create a metaphor for the slavery, and the author is telling you, no, I was.
Yeah.
You know, when Gabriel Garcia Marquez was in Moscow, there was a press conference, and of course, writers, journalists, visitors, we asked about 100 years of solitude, of course. And so who is the one who is lonely? What does solitude mean? Is it the same as loneliness? And he explained what did he mean. And it was completely different from what he said like 2 or 1 year ago somewhere else. And so, like, you know, it's, I think, and I know that Miss Butler said that it's not about slavery, but for me, it's totally about slavery as well. And on one of the book clubs, actually, with one of the famous writers, I don't remember who it was, in Moscow, someone, a passionate listener, he was trying to ask the question of a writer about the ending. And the writer said, no, it's not like you think. Actually, and he tries to explain the meaning of the ending. And the listener said, well, it doesn't matter what you think. It's my reading. it's my right to co-create the book with you. And I agree, actually. I think any reader has her or his own right to co-create the meaning of the book together with the author.
Yeah, that's what Butler says. Like, the readers bring their own interpretation of the text, and it's fine even if it is different than her intentions. So we can see many different things here. The most famous case of this that I've seen in Spanish is a poem by Gerardo Diego called Insomnio. That is it's a famous poem, and it talks in a very poetic way about someone who is sleeping but unreachable, and that he talks about abyss and space that separates and that kind of stuff. And for decades, he was for the he was part of the Generación del 27 in Spain, which is a group of poets. And the critics brought a lot of interpretation about he was talking about, a lot of metaphors, about a lot of, well, from love to any other thing that you can imagine. And quite late in his life, he explained why he had wrote the poem, and he wrote it for a neighbor, a neighbor of him that he could see from the window, that was sleeping one day, and basically he got horny or something like that, and wrote a poem for that. And that's the real meaning of the poem. But for a long time, everybody was looking for a deeper meaning in the poem. So that happens a lot.
Yeah, and about the story, like I didn't connect it directly with slavery, but it was interesting because I thought it could be related with racism as we understand it in our Earth. Because if I understand correctly, like the humans in that planet were running away from the Earth, from their own, like, from other humans. If I understand correctly, I'm not sure. Like it's not like the Earth was gone and everybody's dead, you know.
I understood it like the alien mentions that humans turned had always turned onto one another and used one another and enslaved one another, but I didn't get from the story that it was outright stated that that was the reason why they left their planet. I really assumed that it was left to interpretation, and I really thought it would be due to one of the more common causes of science fiction, that the planet just died or resources were not longer enough or things like that. I don't think it's outright stated in the story, but I may be wrong.
I like there's a phrase that I like very much. It says, at first both the aliens and the humans thought the other species was not intelligent. They were just both living there, and they thought, oh, they're just insects. Oh, they're just, I don't know, some new fly that's arrived.
Because we always assume that it's the other race or the other person that is stupid or unintelligent, and not the other way around. That you may be the one that's not able to understand the other person. I remember, I think it was Stephen King, but no, Stephen King, Stephen Hawking. But the thing is, I believe it was him that said that there was a much bigger chance, a much bigger probability that other aliens outside of Earth would be much more intelligent than we are, than otherwise. Then we would be the more intelligent ones, colonizing other planets and looking for ways to exploit other planets. That it would more likely be the other way around. We're backwards compared to other alien races. I don't know if that's true or not, but
no, that's comforting. Like if in the universal patriarchy, we would have the privilege.
Don't know if that's true. Maybe we'll find out, but I'd rather not.
I mean, it's been a pretty weird year, 2020, so maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe there are aliens in Area 51 and we don't know yet. So
I just see us in September, like, remember in May when we thought coronavirus was strange?
Yeah. It's going to be in the second half of the year. I said they're going to be aliens or zombies. So one of those.
Oh my god.
About zombies. At least they're stupid most of the time. Aliens aren't.
So in the story about why the humans left the Earth, I don't think that matter as much as the fact that it's a story of survival and of adaptation. Like they go to a different planet with different characteristics, different fauna and flora, and they have to adapt to survive, which is something that we humans do constantly to all climate differences in planet Earth and to all conditions we adapt. Until I guess we can't adapt now more because it's too harsh. But then when we arrive to this planet with these aliens, we stabilize a new form of survival, which is what brings the characters to need to not cooperate because it's forced, but to bring some kind of symbiosis between host and parasite with the aliens.
I also thought that
Go ahead.
I don't know. Okay, sorry, that we can't. I don't know if we can believe what they're saying at the end of how their relationship originated, because also at one point he talks about how it used to be before they had this more or less civil, and he was saying, yeah, it used to be just the humans locked in cages, drugged 24/7, and that's how they bred. But he's basically saying they were having a genetic problem, no? Like you let that happen for a few more generations and our bodies are garbage. And then that also made me think at the end, like, oh, they, like the humans can't really know their history because it looks like they probably had a few lost generations, was drugged and can't remember anything. So then the humans' history is just what the aliens are telling them. Like, oh, it used to be like this for us, it used to be like this for you, this is why you came here. And you can even, if she is doing this as the power differential between men and women, you can even be like, oh, this is kind of how it was in history, written by men. And especially in the 70s, 80s, when Butler is writing, a lot of the academics were men, you know, like, yeah, I guess kind of the dominant person gets to tell the story until the power shift. But
Yeah, it's just like human history. Human history is really written by those who win wars. It's not the other way around. You lose a conflict, you lose a battle, you lose the opportunity to tell your side of the story. And I think that's why many times we don't learn from our past mistakes. We do the same things over and over again because there hasn't been really of course it's impossible, but there hasn't been a really neutral, impartial gathering of our history. So we repeat our same mistakes because maybe they've not been portrayed as mistakes before.
And
Because
that's another that's another similarity to The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, because all the people who were born in the Republic of Gilead, just like me, because I was born in Soviet Union and I grew up in the Soviet Union, we were taught by the things which the government wanted us to know. And so the borders were closed. We were not allowed to fly out to different countries. And when we had the Summer Olympics in 1982 in Moscow, like in schools, in universities, everywhere, the government, newspapers, radio, everybody was telling us that don't approach foreigners because they have AIDS, they have like other venereal diseases, and don't take genes from them because they implant some sort of dangerous needles inside of it with very terrible disease. Like anything to prevent us from talking to other people and learning new information, the way they live, and what kind of beautiful genes they have, etc. So like it's, yeah. And actually it was very funny in this story. It was one of the characters says that he wants the other one to shut up, and he tells, sit down and enjoy not being sober. So then that was kind of funny.
Yeah, that's even a whole new level of manipulating history and control information that totalitarians do in a different way than what I think that Eugenia was talking about, maybe, because I was thinking in how the ones who win are the ones to write the past history. Like, for example, after the Second World War, in a poll that the French population answered, they asked them, which country do you think that has more importance in winning the war? and a majority of the French people answered that the Soviet Union were the ones that had contributed more to win the war, followed by the UK and the United States. Now, 50 years later, 5 decades later, the same poll to the French population asking which country do you think that contributed more to win the Second World War, the answer was completely different. The first option was the United States. They were the ones that, for the French population, now had won the war, followed by the UK, and then later the Soviet Union, that apparently 50 years later hadn't done anything during the war. But what you were talking, Eric, about was even more interesting than that, which is how the control of information and manipulation can get so hard, which is maybe something that is happening in the story.
Yeah, and this what you said, Eric, that about foreigners being somewhat like contagious reminds me of like coronavirus, because it proves that fear is the most effective tool for controlling people, because it really renders them unable to discern whether it might be a lie or not, but just approaching it with a mentality of just in case. Because fear is like that. Just in case you don't get hurt, you just try not to do nothing, not to do anything. So I think it's a very frightening and dangerous way of controlling people, because it's
which in a way is what they use, what the aliens use by saying it was worse before. You don't want to go back to what there was before. This is good.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is because of Tigatoi. And for me, Tigatoi is, I don't know if you read the Testaments book by Margaret Atwood, which is a sequel to The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
So I don't want to spoil it for you, but Tigatoi is a lot like Aunt Lydia. You know, she's the one who is doing a lot of dangerous, terrible things, but she's also sort of keeping the balance between the violence of the insect-like hosts and human beings.
Yeah, she's killing them softly without them noticing, but it's like a very useful method to stop any resistance, to make them look like they're being good to you, and that complying is better than antagonizing them outright, and that way they are quelling any sort of fighting back that might ensue.
Definitely got the indoctrination, paternalistic government regime vibe from the story as well. Like on an individual level, they have this grooming, but also on a societal level, and you have the different people's reaction to it. You have Gon, who's kind of like, at least at the beginning of the story, is the people who kind of buy the big lie, and they're like, yeah, the government really does care about me and they're taking care of me. And he kind of believes when Gatoi says like, no, it's better if you don't see what happens when the humans or the Terrans give birth, because it's not good for you to see that, and we're just taking care of you, as if they're not doing it for their own benefit, they're doing it to take care of you. And then you have other people like the mother and the brother, who they know that it's fucked up, they know what's really happening, but they can't say anything because they're living in this regime where it's dangerous to say no, it's dangerous to point out the truth. So I think there was, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I think there was a lot of parallels to these like paternalistic Big Brother type governments that are like, oh, we're taking care of you and we're just doing what's best for you, and Big Brother loves you and the sort of thing. So
Big Brother, and with the drugs, a little bit of Brave New World there too.
That paternalistic like planned society, we're taking care of you, don't worry, don't think about it, don't look over there kind of thing.
It's like a twisted way, because it's like Big Brother loves you but drugged and obedient. Otherwise Big Brother hates you.
But at the same time, like Big Brother, because I was thinking, what is his Gon's motivation to want to see this? Because he seems to want to see it when it's happening. When she says, "Have your brother come and you go do this other thing," but he wants to see it and also she could make it go differently too, but maybe she also wants him to see it and have like his real. I like Big Brother also wants you to be happy to be dominated. You know, like just do it. Like it's nicer for the dominant's own satisfaction if the other person is in or has given their agreement to it somehow. I don't know. I just thought, why does he want to see it, and why does she let him see it? Because it's obviously going to cause problems.
I think he wants to see it for the reason, just natural, like, okay, this is going to happen to me and I'm curious, and also in the moment he wants to help, right? Like he thinks he's going to be the best at helping, and I think that's why she lets him stay, because she recognizes in the moment the most important thing is she needs to save these whatever her species babies, and he's going to be the most useful person to help in that situation. So I don't think it was like her plan or like ideal that he should see it, but like needs must, you know, like she had to save these.
And I don't think that he knew how bad was it, like, and that's why at the end of the extraction, whatever, like Tigatoy say, no, but yours is gonna be different because I'm gonna be there and you're not gonna be feeling that much pain, like, so.
I think it's also that part is kind of like, especially in the past, now it's not quite as bad, but like that we're not really very much informed as a whole in society of what like childbirth actually entails. Like they kind of try to hide some of the details and the possibilities from you, and are like, oh, it's a beautiful miracle. It's like, well,
Yes,
okay, but it's really dangerous, it's really painful, things can go really wrong, like your body's never going to be the same again, you're never going to be the same again, and if it's something you want, maybe it's worth it. But like I think there's definitely an element of that in our society, and much more so in the past, probably when she was writing this, that it's like, oh, you don't need to know all the gory details. It's like, we should know, like, especially everybody should know, men and women should know, like, that what a woman's body goes through.
Yeah, but I think also like it shows like even in the past, like even knowing that it could be very risky and very painful because there were no drugs for it, like why women would actually like be willing to, you know, to do that. Like maybe it's this kind of the same like situation. I don't know.
I remember when my sorry, go ahead.
No, please go on.
Thanks. I'll be quick. When I was having when my first son was born, all my friends told me, like, don't go there, especially those who had a kid before, and my female friends as well. They said never. I mean, if you want to have sex with your wife after after your son is born, don't go to the pregnancy room. And they were so so insisting, and I was afraid, because the way they explained it, it was like this gatoy insect like creature crawling out of the vagina. So I was very afraid, and I wanted to fight that fear. So I went into that room. I was massaging the back of my wife for, I think, 4 hours. And I was looking at the birth process, and I was cutting the cord and everything. So I think it's just exaggerated. And it was completely fine. So, and I think here, it's also the important theme is that there is a coming of age, an adolescent boy approaching the level of the stage of his life when the Santa Claus story is over, and there is a life ahead, and this life is very terrible, and his first love will probably be unrequited and a very terrible experience, but you have to go through that. because if you go through this first unrequited love and you make it out, your life will be easier. So I think it's this kind of, so at least for me.
Yeah, about the birth experience in the story, I think the biggest reason to how these eggs are born inside the men bodies in the story, the biggest reaction is from the brother, from Kui or Ki or however he's called. Like he's very resentful of everything that has to do with the aliens because he has seen what happens. Like he has seen how they exit from the inside to some guy that they didn't have animals around or whatever. So he was eaten from within, and therefore his goal is to escape. He only wants to get out of there first in a physical way from the reservation, the jail they are living on. But then when he realized that he can, then he wants as much drug as possible. He wants constantly to get this egg that makes them like escaping somehow, but only feeling good in the head. And I can't remember, but I think that he even considers killing himself or something like that. So from the moment he sees how they are born, he wants to escape for all ways possible, for all means.
He sees how they are born when something goes wrong. That's not how it's supposed to be. Yeah.
Well, we only have
But
the
it's
aliens
like-
word for that.
But it's like Mo said, like human pregnancy can have horrible consequences.
Yeah. And
Like,
if you as a father see a pregnancy that goes wrong, you probably never want to have a child again. But the thing is, he says, Gan says that he knows all the theory. He knows how it works, how they feed first on the blood, and then on their eggshells, then on their blah, blah, blah. He knows all this. It's been detailedly explained. And then if it doesn't go wrong, it's not supposed to be that traumatic. But I still think, why does a woman go through childbirth? Because they form another life.
You freeze.
Yeah, you froze, Jessica.
Hello.
Yeah,
No.
Now you're back.
Now you're back.
Now you're back.
We stopped on when you were saying they form a new life.
They form a new life, a new family. You can educate your child, see him grow up, see him achieve things. And even though Tiganoy may be the fruit of his father, it's not the same. You don't participate in family life with these eggs. You don't bring up little tiny aliens in a happy home by the fire. It's not the same thing, even though they're trying to make it out to be.
Yeah, but to me it's disturbing enough. Otherwise, even though, but still, I think that the brothers role in the story, in a way, shows that ignorance is a bliss, because the protagonist is much more happier and much more compliant with his role when he doesn't know firsthand what his future may look like. Okay, because that kind of birth doesn't have to end so badly as the one that his brother saw. But still, it shows that to me that ignorance is a bliss. It reminded me of a similar science fiction story where everything was fine and everything looked perfect until the main characters saw the horrible creatures that were farming them to eat them. Like this story, but without the impregnation, like more like eating humans like animals. And everything was fine until they saw that happen, and they were like, that's what's going to happen to us. And then the caretakers that were raising human children for them to be eaten, specifically for their brains to be eaten, it was a very story, just like this one. They told the children, you made everything worse for yourselves, because otherwise you would have led a very happy existence just like the other kids, and you wouldn't have suffered till the very end that you were when you were taken away and eaten. just a day or under, but because you did this, you're going to suffer knowing that until the day you're taken away. And in a way, it's true. And I think the story showcases it very well with the brother's role and how the main character's relationship with, if it can be called that way, with the alien changes, and he contemplates suicide because he knows and he sees what exactly is he signing up for, in a way. Well, not willingly, but what awaits him if he continues on. And I think that's very disturbing, but also true. Sometimes not knowing can be better than knowing, but not for the right reasons, I think.
What do you guys think of the preserve? Because if I understood correctly, like they made the preserve for like not every alien could get access to the humans, but only like the rich 1% or I don't know. I think this alien is like an example. It's a very powerful alien in this society. Because Adrian, you said before it was like a prison.
Wasn't it dependent on fertility? Sister one was fertile, and that's why she didn't have access to humans. But maybe it was class, and would make sense.
I think there was, she says at some point, there's a certain percentage that goes to the general public. And then, or maybe I dreamt this, I don't know now. And then there's, if you have money, you can buy into it. But
right.
Overall, it's to preserve the humans from overuse and extinction.
No.
Yeah, I think I read, or maybe I just infer from that some aliens didn't agree with this policy of humans being free in the preserves, and they wouldn't be able like to comply with the rules that to leave humans safe there, and would like break the law and or the rules there and try to take advantage of humans without caring what the rules were.
Yeah, I mean the main alien, Tagatoyo or whatever her name is. I see her as a politician in charge of defending, or at least as acting as a liaison between the outside world and the preserve. So she tries to defend humans. But then we could picture this as a camp of refugees, like to make an analogy with our modern days here on Earth, and someone who deals with the outside administrations or whatever, trying to defend the interests of the people inside the camp, something like that.
To me, it reminded me more of a zoo than that refugee camp.
A zoo.
Because in refugees camp, at least, you don't expect anyone to take advantage of the refugees being there, even if it happens. The refugees aren't there for them to be taken advantage of. But to me, it reminded me of more of a zoo, or because there's a purpose of them being kept there. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought of it more as like a farm, or like a they were kept in factory farms, and now this like progressive politicians,
free range humans.
Yeah, the progressive politicians like, oh, let's give them 1 more meter of space. We're still going to exploit them horribly, and we're going to basically end their lives. And they're a product, and we have zero respect for them. But oh, they're cute. Let's give them a little bit more room.
Yeah, their
cages.
prison might be prettier, but it's still a prison, right?
Yeah, this may be true even more because we don't really know what's happening there, because the only information we have is from GAN, or from God. Like we see it from his perspective. There's not an omniscient narrator telling what everybody is thinking. We just see what he thinks he knows from the history. It feels like they are like inside a farm, like industrialized cattle, like they are being used just to provide for the masters, for their owners. And there's this how do you call the hypothesis of the farmer, which is something that I learned reading The Free Body Problem, the book, where they talk about the hypothesis of the archer and the hypothesis of the farmer. Well, it's this hypothesis is designed to explain how the epistemology of science, the way that science knows the reality around, works. But it can be applied also to this perspective where the main character only knows what he sees. And he may not know or may not understand that he's inside a farm. The hypothesis of the farmer, for whoever haven't read the Three Body Problem book, is that there's a farm with hundreds of turkeys, and every day there's a turkey that is a scientist and takes notes of what is happening, and he writes down every day. At 9 o'clock, the farmer comes and gives food to us. So he cares a lot for us. He brings us food every day for a year. He takes care of us and brings us food. But then, and then he announces this to all the turkeys in the farm, saying, this is the findings of my scientific study, is that the farmer takes care of us and brings us food every day at 9. And this is a law of the physics and how the world works. But then the next day is Thanksgiving, because it's an American farm. And it's Thanksgiving. And the farmer, instead of bringing the food, takes the turkeys, kills them all, and eat them. So the perspective from inside the farm, you don't really know what's happening outside, what they are doing, why are they keeping them in the preserve. The only information that they have is what the aliens give to them. So we don't really know neither as readers.
It's the perspective of the turkey.
Right.
In this
Exactly.
is the thing, we have the perspective of the one being eaten.
Guys, how do you understand the name of the story, Bloodchild?
Because the worms feed off of blood veins. No, I thought maybe, and
That's what I thought.
they opened up and gutted to get them out. No, like, and it's a play
Because,
with a blood child in English is also. I think it's also just when a child is genetically yours. No, when like it's in traditional terms genetic, wouldn't they say that was a blood child? I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not.
I think I know that well, from you guys that it doesn't have to do with slavery, but I feel like when you read books about slavery, and I was thinking at first it had to do when you were talking about, you know, how Gan's father gave birth to the spider, but it still didn't have a relationship because of during slavery, when like the white owners were having children by black slaves, which were products of rape. And I think it was also I think it was normal that that slaves that were lactating to feed children, white children, if necessary. I'm not sure, but I think that was normal. But also in those kinds of when you're reading like a slave book, they do say the word blood child a lot for those, you know, children who were a product of rape. But yeah, but now you say she's so adamant about saying it has nothing to do with slavery, but
it's hard to say, 'cause, I mean, okay, maybe she didn't write it as a metaphor for American slavery or the history of American slavery, but I mean, the characters are slaves. Like the Terran characters are slaves, so maybe it's not about slavery, but the majority of the characters in it are slaves. So
yeah, I completely agree with you. And, in Russian, the name of the novel is "Кровное дитя," which means children who have the same ancestors, who have the same biological ancestors. So, but I was trying to like connect it to the short story, and I was having a hard time.
So it may not be about slavery, but I get the impression, I mean, I've only read two things, Kindred and this, but that there's always a general idea of slavery about, like it's something that she has in her blood. Even though it's not specifically about slavery, it's something that's very much on her mind. Even when she's not writing about it, it sort of seeps through.
Well, wasn't she a lot of,
Sorry, Margot.
Wasn't she a, I mean, I would think like class issues would also come a lot through in her stuff, no? Like stuff related to class and gender. Just also because anything written in the 70s and 80s, oh, this is from the 90s though. I don't know, I feel like the 80s was still a point in time where-
In the 80s, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was originally published in 84 and then republished in 94.
Yeah, it's just at that time that was the discourse. Like there was a lot of radical feminism. That was, everyone was talking about class, gender, and religion, and yeah, I feel like it would, like, that's why a lot of stuff that you read from the time or anything, like if you've read Ursula Le Guin, like I feel like she could be writing about like feeding oranges to a pony and there would still be some class and gender issues involved, because they're writing at that time.
84. Mo, you said that the book was published in 84?
Yeah, right. Andrea, I think it was first published in 1984.
Yeah, for a magazine and then appear in a compilation in the 90s.
Oh, wow. Okay, so first of all, that's a big surprise for me. And actually, it's the same year when Handmaid's Tale was published, also in 1984. And there are so many similarities with this story. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a very good era for science fiction, right?
Yeah.
The 80s, especially, I think.
Yeah, there have been some decades that have been very good. Like the 50s were very good too. Well, depends on which country are we talking about. But in the States, it was. More than slavery, I could say that it's either a gender issue or she's talking just about symbiosis, because when the humans arrive to the planet and they try to survive and they adapt to what is happening, they establish an interlink or a symbiosis with the other aliens, and they both survive because they cooperate. So I will see it more that way, and maybe some gender issues revealed there in the power imbalance.
Well, what do you mean by symbiosis? Because I don't see what the humans are getting out of this relationship.
Survival.
But they could survive anyway. They could have survived fine without the being enslaved. I mean,
yeah, but the fact that there is a power imbalance, like they can't survive because the other aliens are there, doesn't mean that they interchange survival for giving the kids to them, because there's something that Jessica mentioned at the beginning that we haven't talked about, which is that in this case the invaders, the European style invaders that go to colonize a planet or a country or whatever, are actually the ones that are colonized, but the local species that is living actually already in the planet. So either they get killed or they can't survive, or they establish this symbiosis.
But there's I don't know, maybe it's just the word I'm getting hung up on, but symbiosis does not mean, oh, if you comply with what I want or I'll kill you. That's not symbiosis. Like symbiosis is when two species both mutually benefit, like the birds who eat the ticks off of rhinos, like the rhino is free of ticks and the birds eat. But in this case, I don't see how the humans are getting anything out of it. I mean, yeah, they can survive this way, but only because of the system that the dominant species created. Also, I don't really know
Yeah,
why you would want your species to survive under these circumstances, but that's a whole other question.
I think, well, since Octavia Butler was black and female, I think she was used to these cliches that she's always writing about racism, etc. So I think it was a way of saying, like, cool down, like, chill. This is not about racism as you think, like U.S. slavery, but more about a domination of one type or class of living creatures over another. And here I completely agree. I don't see much how humans benefit from these relationships with insect-like creatures. I think the only big advantage is that they are the hosts, and they gave the refugees from Earth a place to live. But human beings have a very huge price to pay. I'm done.
Oh. But I think the symbiosis is just from, I guess not from the biological description, no, just from a society one, no, because it's kind of like going back 300 years to, I just really think it's female-male relationship in a big power imbalance, because that's what it would be like. Like you can choose between having children or just going into a corner and dying, I guess, which is kind of what he's saying at the end, no, like he's thinking about his brother, and the couple lines of dialogue before the ending, and he says it's the only way you can actually run out of, the only escape is dying. And he's thinking, I wonder if my brother knows that. And that's kind of what they said back. And I don't know if has anyone read Bone Clocks by David Mitchell? And okay, then I can't say this. No, it's a very good book, but I don't want to spoil it because it's a fantastic book. But yeah, there's a certain point where it's kind of saying up to a certain century, being a woman wasn't that useful in a sense, that you kind of just had to wait your life out because it was lived to give birth to other creatures, and you could choose between doing that or just not being around, or maybe you won the lottery and could be a nun, but other than that,
or prostitutes.
In what universe would being a nun?
well, that was kind of where you could actually do something that wasn't, some people pick doing that, like the rich,
Yeah,
some rich
something that was at least
women were able to do that. Yeah.
But oh my gosh, how have things changed?
Yeah, but for me, it's kind of that, like a commentary on the natural power imbalance, and how people aren't, not even the dominant person is really opting into that relationship. Like they both have to navigate it how they can, and everyone has emotions, but the dominant ones are always going to be the ones that are there, no? And you even see how, at first I was wondering if it was an abusive relationship, because you see he keeps going back and forth, well, what we've talked about a lot, like whether this creature loves him or not. Like he doesn't know. He's told by the creature that he loves him, but he shifts all the time between she loves me, she doesn't love me, she loves me, she doesn't love me or care for me, until the very end, when he realizes that she has to put an egg in someone that night. So when she said she would go talk to the sister, she was going to do it in a violent way. And he realizes that at the very end, and he has this anger, but he still asks for forgiveness afterwards, like in a really abusive relationship. And I think the things we perceive as love are just people in the cognitive dissonance of someone in an abusive relationship, where to keep being alive, you have to lie to yourself sometimes. no, and say, oh, but they care for me, and you're doing like mental gymnastics to say, but they care for me, and then another little part inside of him is like, no, don't you see logically they don't? But maybe for that creature, that is the form that they have of caring. But it's the most they can care for this creature. They're doing their very best, but ultimately they have the power. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. In a lot of abusive and toxic relationships, you have to lie to yourself to be able to bear the situation and be able to keep going mentally. But in deep inside, you know that something is wrong, and you always notice. A part of you always notice, because we have, but it's out of, in a way, survival instinct. You have to cope, like, I think. And in this story, I think it also happens, but the survival skills are needed in a much more strong and visceral way than in the psychological sense that happens to us.
Mm. And it's
Yeah,
also
yes.
oh, sorry, Eric, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic, you know, like I've seen it happen in friendships or even in jobs, you know, where it's about who the dominant one is, and you know, they can pretend to be on the same level, but you know, things like that. But yeah, sorry.
Yes, I guess my last comment would be that I like the idea of lying to yourself, and a lot of what you said makes complete sense, and I almost agree with you that it's not a story about love, but I'd like to continue lying to myself and live in denial. I still I still prefer to see the last story. That's the last comment. Sorry.
I think we are shown that there are two different ways of how the Terrans have a relationship with the aliens. The ones that are outside the preserve, they are just, you said, indiscriminately and probably to extinction, like they have it like however they want. And the ones that are inside the preserve in a kind of pact to survive, where they allow themselves to be used as hosts to only one per family, and therefore to survive, while the other ones are just being predated out there. And that these two different ways of seeing it is where the relationship between Terrans and aliens, even if it's a very hierarchized war with a lot of power imbalance, comes a bit of voluntarily acceptance of, okay, we'll be the host to your kids to protect us and we'll survive, the way I say it.
The alien thing, I'm sorry guys, but you know, 2 years ago during the World Championship in Russia, when we were playing against Spain, and when we were looking at the Spanish supporters, we thought, God, who are these aliens? You know, the Spanish people seemed alien to us, because it's like different people from a different culture, and Russia is very totalitarian, closed country, unfortunately. But like myself and my friends thought, God, we are fucked. I mean, Spain is the strongest football team in the world. And but when the match was finished and somehow Spain lost to Russia, we were celebrating together with the Spanish guys. But in the beginning, we were so afraid of Spain, of Spanish supporters, of Spanish team. Like you looked like alien to us. I'm joking, of course.
No, yeah.
That was the World Cup that had all the weird matches, no? That there were like 8-0. Was it that one?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah, I mean, many times in science fiction, when you wonder how other planets could be and what the difference could be between a species, it's based on what we have in planet Earth between different cultures and the differences that we may have as humans on how we organize ourselves and how we do things differently. Good science fiction authors can create very different worlds with very different aliens, but stuff like even the way we applaud, like what I noticed when I was in Russia, like in theaters and stuff, is that the way that the people applaud in Russia is different than the way people applaud in Spain, now that you were mentioning the fans in the football. So yeah, sometimes we humans, being humans, feel like aliens to others until we see it more clearly and we understand how other people live.
But how do they applaud in Russia?
Yeah, I was curious.
It felt to me that they
Unison,
applaud,
right?
yeah, like they applaud with a rhythm.
Yeah, like everybody applauds at the same time. Happened in Bulgaria
Oh, wow.
too. It's like,
Wow.
Weird but cool at the same time.
It's really cool, and it can go for a long time because you are maintaining in a rhythm with the rest of the people. While here in Spain, everybody goes freely, like I'm going to applaud, but then some people applaud more, some people less, and then everybody gets discoordinated, and then you stop applauding because you're tired. Well, with a lot of people around,
It's chaos.
But the problem, I think there are people, I think I am one of them, that we don't have any sense of rhythm. And when everyone is doing this, we're doing the opposite thing. So I think those people might get really uncomfortable. Like, everyone's doing it the same and I just can't seem to match with everyone else. So that may cause some weird moments.
My favorite different applause I saw was a couple of years at the Oscars. They showed the film director Wes Anderson was in the audience clapping, and I remember he clapped like this. You were like,
Please don't say that. No, that can't be true.
interesting. So that's how Wes Anderson.
That's so cool. Did he ever hit himself in the face accidentally? I want to know.
I mean, he had a black eye, so no, I don't know.
I mean, I don't know him, but he must be some kind of weird person, like based on his films. Like original person, I mean. Like.
Yeah, he's like the stop motion movie, movies like that. But,
oh my god, who told that to him? His parents. What happened? What went wrong there?
What went wrong?
I'm sure.
Maybe he was just tired.
Yeah, maybe.
Jessica, you're trying to find a rational explanation, and I love that.
Maybe it was
Very
like
rational person.
an ironic applause, and nobody gets it.
Okay, I have to leave you because I'm running out of battery.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just wanted to say that I like, when I was reading about this story, I like how Octavia Butler wanted to go into sci-fi, because she started writing when she was very young, when she was 10 years old. And when she was a teenager, saw a movie, like a bad sci-fi movie with a low budget, that was called Devil Girl from Mars. And later, when she was a famous writer, she explained in a speech at the MIT how that bad movie changed her life. And it was because when she was a teenager, she says, as I was watching this film, I had a series of revelations. The first was that, geez, I can write a better story than that. And then I thought, gee, anybody can write a better story than that. And my third thought was the clincher. Somebody got paid for writing that awful story. So she decided to go professional into it, which is quite cool. And at the beginning, she thought that most of the stories were about 30-year-old white men who smoke and drink too much. And she decided to change that into something different. And she actually did, and Bloodchild is a good example.
I like that.
Yeah.
Really
2 hours short
respect
story, guys. Do you want to wrap up? Like final comments? We discussing this short story for 2 hours. That's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot.
Yeah, I said everything I had to say about the story.
I really liked it,
Right.
and I just want to complain that we didn't rate it yet again.
Oh, that's true. We didn't do the
Yeah.
poll.
I forgot.
Both, right?
Just wanted to say that.
Right. Well, anyway, guys, thank you for having me. It was a wonderful discussion. Thank you. Thank you for choosing this story and offer. That was very, I learned a lot today. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Eric.
Right.
Please feel free
Next
to come again to the next one, because it's more or less the same time zone that in Spain, right? What is it, like 8?
Yeah, yeah, 1 hour. 1 hour difference.
Huh?
That's cool.
Yeah, 1 hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it would be
Okay.
more.
Yeah, we do.
1 hour. Okay, guys. Bye. Thank
All
you.
right. See you
Bye.
all on the next one.
Bye.
Until next
Bye.
one. Bye.
Bye.